Bendiciones. I was watching a video talking about how globalists want global banking. The Federal Reserve is not part of the government. A lot of people are very surprised to learn that the Federal Reserve is not part of the government. It's a bunch of banksters. The government gave the power away to private bank. The government gave power away to private bankers to control the system of money. Money in the bank right now represents dollar bills that are not backed by anything. So it's all illusion of wealth that will, they say, collapse pretty soon. The US federal dollar is a confidence game. It's not backed by gold. Its value will collapse with public opinion. BRICS recently announced that they will be trading in their own currency, and that's half of the world's economy is going to be trading in something that is not US dollars. Even the president of El Salvador lectures people of the dollar. Pretty soon, it will become mainstream. Here is
to see that this is happening everywhere, not only in El Salvador and the United States, it's happening everywhere. But even here, in the United States, in the most powerful country in the world, even here, it's happening. America should listen to these words, not because the El Salvador model should be replicated here, but because these specific examples apply to any nation that has lost or is losing its way. Ask yourself why this is happening, who is supporting it, and whether it's by ignorance or by choice. And fight it. Fight it with all your heart and soul, and be the beacon of hope. And be the beacon of hope that your founding fathers, with all their faults like every human being has, dreamt for your country. Fight for your freedoms, for your rights. Fight for the original purpose of these institutions and not their mere existence. It's still not too late. It can be done. It is time to erase these new paradigms that have been imposed in the recent years that make no sense. If you just free your minds from those invisible chains, you could do it. This shift is an extremely dangerous trend that undermines this system. Now, you would think that's it, as it wasn't enough, right? But unfortunately, there's more. There are other symptoms that are even more difficult to diagnose.
Katie. So I was noticing that he's wearing like red and black, and those colors are, stand out to me because usually when you hear usually the government officials or, whatever they wear, what's it called? Blue, they always have like blue, but that stood out to me that he was wearing red and black. So even the president of El Salvador is lecturing the people of the dollar. Pretty soon it will become mainstream. They say within 18 to 48 months, it was going to click in people's heads that the dollar is not worth anything. And then inflation will go up faster and the dollar will devalue. If you, they were showing an example that if you have saved $10,000 in the bank that you hope to use later as you retire, that a third of that is going to lose its value right off the bat. And since banks are no longer paying interest, people will feel that like right away. And so they were announcing that there's there was a 5% inflation last year, but they said in reality it was a 26% inflation. And that they feel like they've already projected that this is going to be within the next 18 to 48 months. They say it's due to human opinion being very fickle, and it can evaporate the dollar overnight and make the money worthless paper. It says that before, money was backed by gold and silver in the federal treasure, but that has been looted. So this what I was watching, I believe it was Redacted or one of those alternative media, but they were also talking about how people are trying now to invest in gold and silver and platinum because it's real money. But the federal government, knowing that the dollar is being devalued, they've put laws into place to penalize people from buying gold and silver. The federal government has put a gains tax, and that reduces gold and silver to a commodity and not money. So there's a big movement across the states. 23 states already have recognized gold and silver coin as legal tender, and it would therefore make it not subject to capital gains tax or sales tax, considered property. And that is not taxable because it is a currency. Because the U.S. Constitution, Article 1, Section 10, Clause 1, the states have the power to recognize gold and silver as legal tender. What we use now is paper money that's just, printed out of thin air, which people are saying that why are we in debt then if they could just print it out of thin air? And the reason for the debt is to keep people enslaved in this system of taxing. If you watch like old movies, like I have been watching old with the king and queen, and how they would, tax the people, and they would go out. There's a whole bunch of them on Netflix, but like one of them, they wanted to throw a party. They wanted to throw this lavish party, and they didn't have the money to do it. So the queen was like, go out and, collect an extra tax. So they were just going out and confiscating properties and just, telling people you have to, they could barely eat. And they barely had money to eat, and they were taxing them and, making them give what little they had just so they could have a lavish party, and that's the same system we have now. Like, all these other people, they're living lavishly, they have all of this extra, and beyond. And the average, person is struggling to pay bills, struggling to buy food. And that's how it's getting hard, when it's like food prices going up. That's, they want us to not be able to buy quality food. The only thing that people can afford to buy is like fast food, cheap fast food. And what does that do? It causes people to be unhealthy. And then what does that do? It causes people to go to get healthcare, to get prescription drugs, and even if I was looking at some website online, I think it's Nextdoor app, and people are going into the hospital for, different sicknesses, and they were showing their hospital food, and it was crazy. Like it's like they give you the worst food, the worst food in the hospitals. Instead of giving you food to help you to feel better, help your body to heal, they give you like Jello. What health benefits does Jello possibly have, or all the other, processed stuff that they give in there? And it's like if they're doing it on purpose, and why is it that doctors don't have to have, years of studying nutrition, and it's barely one quick little class that they take on nutrition, but they take so many studies on pharmaceuticals, which pills to use. It's all by design. There's a reason for all of that. And it just is like they're coming from every angle. They're coming at people from every angle. I am in California, and on the Nextdoor app, or I don't know if people have It's Your Neighborhood apps, most of the people here in California have been posting that they're receiving notices from, especially after the floods. There was big floods that came through, which, I mean, I've always been here and I've never seen any flooding like that. And people are getting notices from their insurance companies that they're canceling their homeowners insurance just for no reason. It's first started with people that live like close to canyons, like a year ago or so ago. And so people were like, oh, it's because of the wildfires. And so they were like tripling their insurance, and then they flat out started canceling people. And then after the flooding, they started canceling a whole bunch of people. And it's people that are just inland, you know, like not close to a canyon or anything. And they're sending notices saying that they're not going to be, they're pulling out of California. And then they're making their excuse of why they're doing it, or, you know, whatever. But people are, you know, concerned. They're thinking, you know, what do they know? What do they know that, you know, that everybody else doesn't know? Like, what's coming? You know, why is this happening? So we just got a notice in the mail, and from the insurance company, and I was scared to open it. I was like, oh man, what is it? But they had just told us to secure, what's it called? Earthquake insurance. Let me play this other one that I saw. Let me see. Share screen. Let's see what this one has to say. Share sound.
Hey, if you live in one of these cities right here, why don't you own an apartment building? Seriously, let me show you a path that could act.
Who elected Soros to dictate public policy and laws? Why does he feel entitled to impose his agenda? The global elites, they hate our success, and they fear yours. Institutions were created to serve the people, and not the other way around. Well, so if the government can print unlimited amounts of money, why do they collect taxes? You pay high taxes only to uphold the illusion that you are funding the government, which you are not. The government is funded by money printing, paper backed with paper. Confidence in your currency will be lost. The dollar will fall, and the Western civilization with it. We transform El Salvador from the most dangerous country in the world to the safest in the Western Hemisphere. The corrupt system works in tandem with the so-called international community, the NGOs, and of course the fake news, just like it happens here in the United States. Unelected bureaucrats are trying to instate public policy. Who elected them? They don't have a democratic mandate. If they want a seat in the table, they should run for office. Let the people vote. It will not be a pretty sight for them if the elections are free and fair. I mean, who elected Soros to dictate public policy and laws? Why does he feel entitled to impose his agenda? Let me tell you something. Soros and his cronies hit a brick wall in El Salvador. Thank God, and all the glory be to him, Salvadorans are now immune to his influence. No one believes his lies anymore over there. We just had free and fair elections, and we won in a landslide with more than 84% of the vote. Let that sink in. More than 84% of the people voted to continue our policies. Our victory is unprecedented in the history and modern democracies in the world. They also gave us a supermajority in Congress, more than that, 54 seats out of 60. "57 if we count our allies. That's 95% of Congress. Let that also sink in. The people of El Salvador have woken up, and so can you. The global elites, they hate our success, and they fear yours. The people's free will to choose their leaders is something they despise because they cannot control that. You have experienced this firsthand here in the United States. The global elites control the mainstream media, they finance campaigns, district attorneys, to mention a few. They abuse their powers. They persecute political opponents. In El Salvador, we don't weaponize our judicial system to persecute our political opponents. A practice that may sound familiar to you, but we don't do that there. And who's the dictator? The global elites in the media, they work in conjunction, they run some stories and publish them, same pictures to reinforce their agendas. You're no strangers to that here in the United States. We deal with that in El Salvador too. That is the free press that they talk about? Please. I always criticize the defenders of institutionalism, not because I don't think strong institutions are paramount and necessary for a democracy, but because I find them very hypocritical. They don't seem to have the same standards for themselves as they are trying to impose on others. But there's yet another component that is more dangerous than a simple double standard. Institutions were created to serve the people and not the other way around. For instance, the financial situation of the United States. When I talk to my conservative friends right here, they always tell me that the problem is high taxes, but they're wrong. Of course, high taxes are extremely high here in the United States. I give you that. You're right in that. But that's not the real problem. The real problem is not the high taxes themselves, but the fact that they are not even really funding the government. Not even those high taxes, higher than a lot of places in the world, not even those taxes are really funding the government. So who's financing the government? Government is financed by treasury bonds, paper. And who buys the treasury bonds? Mostly the Fed. And how does the Fed buy them? By printing money. But what backing does the Fed have for that money being printed? The treasury bonds themselves. So basically, you finance the government by printing money out of thin air. Someone could ask, well, so if the government can print the limited amounts of money out of thin air, why did they collect taxes? I mean, in theory, it would make sense, right? If they can print unlimited amounts of money, why would they need taxes for? The answer is simple, but it's very shocking. The real problem is that you pay high taxes only to uphold the illusion that you are funding the government, which you are not. It's shocking, but it's true. The government is funded by money printing, paper backed with paper. a bubble that will inevitably burst. The situation is even worse than it seems, because if most Americans and the rest of the world were to become aware of this farce, confidence in your currency would be lost, the dollar would fall, and the Western civilization with it. If the next president of the United States doesn't make the necessary policies and structural changes, sooner or later that bubble will burst. There's still time. You don't have to make the same mistakes we did in the 60s and the 70s. You can still jump before the water boils. Winning the election isn't enough to solve these problems. They will not simply go away as a consequence of an electoral result. It would take a total re-engineering of the government, top to bottom. It will entail making difficult decisions, like the ones we made in El Salvador since 2019, and they're already paying off. It will be hard. The system will push back, but you have the right to determine your own fate. Salvadorans did the same. The decision for the direction of our nation was ours, and it continues to be ours. We didn't tolerate being told what to do. In doing so, we did the unthinkable. Against all adversity, we transformed El Salvador from the most dangerous country in the world to the safest in the Western Hemisphere. We did it by defying the global elites. We told them no more. And that is my message to you. Put up the fight, because it is, in the end, it will be worth it.